Welcome to another episode of Let's Code on IBM Tech TV. I'm pleased today to have with me Kyle Frohling and Peter Golmer, who will be taking us through our topic of the day, which is leveraging IBM API Hub for application success. Very interested in hearing about this topic and just seeing what the fuss is all about related to APIs and how we empower developers to use them in their applications. So with that, I think, Kyle, it's over to you.
Can you see my screen?
I certainly can.
Okay, that's awesome. So this is Kyle Frohling. I'm an enterprise architecture for IBM's API economy. And as Neil just said, I'm going to talk to you about IBM's API Hub. So to start with, the API Hub helps developers get access to IBM and partner APIs, which in turn help accelerate the development of API-based solutions. This is all done through the discovery of APIs through IBM's reach, its various ecosystems and platforms that it has available. Once APIs are discovered through the API Hub will then help enable exploration of those APIs through various learning and educational resources, and eventually, hopefully, get to the try it out function of that capability of that particular API. This all helps accelerate the development and adoption of APIs. And as you see on the left-hand side of the chart here, that's a screenshot of the API Hub landing page, which I'm going to take you through in just a minute here. So the developer journey. So the first thing about the developer journey using in getting access to APIs is IBM's API Hub is part of a larger IBM developer ecosystem, which is key here in that it's not just a catalog of API documentation, but it also includes connection with other resources, which I'll talk to you about in just a second. So first off, for discovery, from an IBM perspective, IBM has workshops, has webinars, has conferences, all associated with driving developers to the APIs on API Hub. There's also organic search within IBM.com itself, as well as the internet. And there's also referrals from IBM, other platforms and ecosystems into API Hub. So once the APIs are discovered, and you look in the middle section of this chart, you see the engagement phase, where in the middle of this is the API listing, which is the catalog of APIs and API Hub. Those are all connected and related to code patterns, articles, blogs, learning paths, tutorials, and other artifacts in the IBM developer ecosystem. Once the developer has some education training and understands the use case of these APIs by referencing some of these articles and learning paths, then they have the ability to try this API out. That can be done either from IBM API Hub directly or through the Red Hat Marketplace, IBM Cloud, or partner marketplaces. So there's kind of a give and take here. So you try it out, a little bit of function, go back and learn more about articles, tutorials through code patterns, and then do your trial again and kind of iteratively grow your knowledge of the APIs and how the APIs work, and get to a point where you're comfortable with those APIs and you can actually use those in your solution. So now I'm going to transition now to a demo of the API Hub. So I'm going to start with this demo from the IBM developer ecosystem, which is the developer.ibm.com site. So in this site, you can see various topics that are available to you: technologies, languages. If I go over here to the products and services, you got open source and product services. I'm going to directly go from here to the API Hub. I'm going to come back to the developer ecosystem here to kind of show you how the content in IBM Developer helps support the APIs in just a minute. But let me go into API. So now here's the IBM API landing page that I showed you on that first chart. If I scroll down, there's a search bar, and through this search bar, you can search on a specific API or API categories or types of APIs and get the relevant APIs associated with your search. Also in the landing page are a feature set of APIs. These are APIs that are rotated monthly, depending on the latest or the most popular APIs that are available. We also have a recommended API section. So if you're an anonymous user, this is a random selection of APIs that will be displayed here. If you're a logged in user, depending on the interest of your profile, we will show APIs that are relevant to you and your role. Scrolling down to the next section, this is share your APIs. So this is those that want to expose their APIs as part of the API Hub catalog. We have a become an API provider. If we go to that section, this talks about being a provider and what does API Hub do for you. And if you are interested, you can register. So you can fill out a quick registration form, send it in, and get access to the provider portal. So through the provider portal, which is for those that are exposing APIs, you can create, update, and publish your APIs through that portal. I won't take you through that today, but there is that capability if you wanted to expose your APIs on API Hub. And then the last section of the landing page is news and content. So this is content pulled in from the IBM developer ecosystem that I showed you previously, where that's where the blogs, tutorials, and articles are kept. These are all associated with API content. We as a default show 5, but you can view all and get a complete listing of all the various artifacts on IBM developer related to APIs. So now I'm going to scroll up here, and then either under featured APIs or recommended APIs, you see a browse APIs. So this will take us to the API catalog. So from here, again, we have a similar search bar where you can search on specific APIs, or you can search on topics or certain types of APIs, and you'll get the relevant results that will be shown. Also, on the left-hand side, we have the categories of APIs, same categories that are on IBM Developer. So we got the technologies, industries, products, services, and we default show 5 here, but if you hit the show more button, you can get a more complete listing. If I selected analytics here, it would pop up the analytics related APIs that are associated with analytics. What I'm going to do now is go to a specific API and type today. So I'm going to go to the anomaly detection API. So this is the standard layout we have for all APIs in the API Hub. In the top section here, in the upper left, you can see a icon you can have related to your API. This is a default icon if you don't provide one. We have the anomaly detection, which is the API name. We have a short description of the API here to get just a quick snippet of what this API does. Also on the right-hand side, we have some calls to action. So we have a try this in the sandbox. This is a function I won't cover today also, but what this does is it'll send you to an IDE environment. It will pull in this API where you can create apps and pull in other APIs as well and create solutions and see how those respond in an IDE environment and get some more knowledge of how these APIs work there. And then there's also the get trial subscription. So if you're interested in getting a trial and use this API, you can quickly fill out this form, pretty short form, click submit, and it will provide you API keys for a 30, 60, 90-day trial, depending on the type of API and what duration they have for their API. So that's the top section. If you scroll down now, we have 3 different sections that are associated with each API. We have an overview section, the endpoints section, which is between the two lines here. And then we have an FAQ and support. So if we focus on the overview section and the introduction, this is a more detailed description of what this API does and what you can get from this API. If you look at the right-hand side, you can see the version of this API. You can also see the categories that this API is associated with. These are the same categories that you saw in the API catalog in the left-hand navigation bar. If I were to click on one of these in artificial intelligence, what this does is actually takes me back to the IBM developer ecosystem, and it's taken me to the artificial intelligence section. There's where you can see articles, courses, learning paths, code patterns, as well as APIs. And you can see the associated APIs. You can see anomaly detection here, which is one of them, but the other APIs that are associated with anomaly detection. So I'm going to go back to the API now, and then the next section down is getting started. This is a section where if you are interested in using this API, it gives you a description of how you go about getting authorization and authentication, getting keys so that you can use the API, as well as some of the other guidance for using the API specifically. Now, if I go to the next section down, this is where we have the API endpoints. So here you can see a 3-panel layout here. In the left nav is a consistent layout, so you can always navigate between overview, the endpoints, and whatever other information you want to get access to. When you get into the endpoint section, it's a 2-column layout here where we have a white column, which is the API documentation, and we have a right column, which includes the code samples and snippets. So for the API documentation section, this is the name of the API. You can see it's a GET function. You got a short description of this specific API endpoint. You got the request URL for this API, and you got the security required to access the API, as well as the responses. So that's the documentation column. If we scroll over to the code sample section, you can see the request samples you can get in various languages. We got curl, Python, Java, Node, whichever your preference is for your code samples, you can get those here. If we scroll down, you can also see the sample responses. In this section right here, right above the request or underneath the request, you can see this open API doc. What this does is it'll download the Swagger or the OAS3 file that's associated with this API, and just click on that and it'll pull up a screen that'll allow you to download that Swagger file or OAS3 file. Then if I click on this try this API function, the right nav bar transitions to a try this API form. So as you can see in this API, it's required a client ID and secret to try this API. I went ahead and already did the registration that I showed you above. So I got a client ID and a client secret. So I will put those into the form here. Let me grab the secret now. Got the client ID. Secret. Put that in, hit run request. As you can see, I got a 200 OK with the request and the response. This was a very simple just connection API. If we were to look at some of these other ones that are a little more involved, we have both the client ID and secret, which is always required, but there's also additional parameters with a header and a path that's needed for this one. And if we scroll down to this detect anomalies API, there's also the client ID and secret, but there's a header parameters as well as a file to assess, as well as many other parameters that are needed. Once all of those parameters are filled out appropriately, this run request would light up in blue, and you can do a run request with a response just like I did previously. So let me go back now to IBM Developer and just kind of show the relationship of the artifacts. So As I said previously, there's different topics within IBM Developer Technologies, languages. I'm going to go to the products and services space, and I'm going to scroll down to IBM Sterling. So this will take me to the IBM Sterling location within the IBM developer. So this has all content associated with IBM Sterling, has articles, courses, code patterns, tutorials, and as you can see, APIs. So if I click on APIs, it'll show me all the relevant APIs associated with Sterling that are in the API Hub. If I go to articles, and you can see that there's various articles here, and I see one that has APIs in it. So if I click on that, you can see an article that's related to APIs, and then you can click on the API and get redirected back to the API Hub. And now we can see the IBM Sterling Fulfillment Optimizer with Watson API. And it's, again, the similar layout as I just described. One thing to point out here is you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different files. What that means is there's 7 different Swagger files or OAS3 files associated with this API tile. So each tile can have 1 to many Swagger files associated with it. If we scroll down to this bottom section, we got the FAQ and support. This one doesn't have any FAQs, but it does have the support link. So if anyone has any questions about this API, there is a support link. And then you can also add additional resources to link out to other information associated with the API so that you can get additional information depending on what you're wanting to do here. So that is pretty much takes me to the end of the demo here. So what I want to do now is transition to see if there's any questions from anyone. So Peter, can you help me out?
Yeah, I don't see any questions at this point. Let's see. Okay, there's one in the chat now. And they're asking if there are any APIs in API Hub related to blockchain. I think
there are a few. There's not a lot, but there are. I think we have 3. So we do have a few.
Yes. And the next question is from Michael. Are all the APIs verified and validated? And Michael, the answer to that is yes. I mean, so one of the ground rules that we have around onboarding new providers is that they do have a live service that sits and runs behind the APIs, and that they keep that up and running.
Yeah, so just to add to that, what we do is actually have a Swagger OAS3 validator that it will be run through before it's published, as well as we do a visual check to make sure that all of the content is populated properly. Like, do they have a description? Do they have a introduction and a getting started section? So we have, and that's only for the first publish, but we do some diligence in before we publish it to make sure that the content is up to snuff.
Yep. There's another question in the chat asking about the typical next steps after someone has come to IBM API Hub and checked out a given API, and really the next steps are, we hope that someone will try a free trial. Most of the platforms sitting behind these APIs will have a freemium tier. Some will, for example, like the research API, Kyle was demonstrating that anomaly detection has a free trial that you can register for directly through API Hub. But that would be, the next step is to sign up for a freemium level or trial registration, so that you can then, outside of API Hub, work toward developing a sample application. And in some cases, and I think this may come up in a subsequent call, some of the API services, we've got a technology sandbox experience. So it's a micro solution or sample app that shows the API in action. So for those that are tech sandbox enabled, that would be a great next step as well. Let's see. And Michael asks, who can become involved with and be permitted to submit their own APIs? Does it have to be a partner? I'll take that one, Kyle. So yes, they do need to be a partner, an IBM business partner, to onboard to API Hub. So that's a relatively simple process to go through and register with Partner World. And then once onboarded, also we also have some IBM client APIs on here as well. But again, that's a case where we have multiple relationships with these enterprises, both a partnership relationship and a client relationship.
Any others?
Yeah, so this one's for you, Kyle. What are the most popular APIs in the catalog today? Where are people going most?
So the most popular API we have is called Weather Insights. So basically, it's using weather data, and I believe it's primarily associated with insurance companies. So insurance companies can get access to weather data and understand when disasters might be coming their way, for example. So that's our most popular API right now.
That makes a lot of sense, because I mean, that weather data is so useful in so many different kinds of industries and use cases. And is that one also enabled with a tech sandbox experience? Do you know?
I don't think it is.
Okay. And I don't see any other questions.
Okay, well, there might be a few more that flow in, but let me go ahead and show this page. So this is how you can get access to the API Hub landing page that I showed previously that I started with. So it's ibm.biz/ and you do need to capitalize these: capital B, small d, capital P, small c, 8, and then capital C. And that will take you to the landing page. And what I would do is encourage you to peruse the APIs that are out there. Find one they don't all have trial subscriptions, but quite a few do. Go get a trial subscription on one of these APIs and then try it out with try this API function in the API Hub. I think that would be a great way to as a next step. You can also, for those that do, there's only a few that have try in the sandbox. That's a new function for us, so we're just emerging that now and growing that capability. But if there is a try this in the sandbox capability, you can also go into the sandbox, create an app, and try this API out there in an IDE environment as well. So like I said, these are all free trials. Go ahead and subscribe and try it out.
Well, that's great, Kyle. We did have another question come in on YouTube. If you happen to know, where does the data come from for the example you gave of the weather data?
Well, the data itself comes from the weather data. And then what it is there's a team within IBM that creates this application that is intended for insurance companies. So it's a combination of pulling in the weather data from the weather channel data and then putting an app that specifically caters to the insurance industry.
Okay, very cool. And I like that you mentioned the integration or the work you've been doing with integrating with the developer technology sandbox. We had a couple of episodes related to the sandbox just a couple of weeks ago, and it was quite popular. So glad to see these things coming together, and I appreciate you coming on the show today, and you and Peter, and walking us through this. I will note to our audience that over the next few weeks, we're actually going to be having some of the research teams coming on and showcasing their APIs using the API Hub, and talking about some of the work they're doing to advance in the area of in their own area of research, using and exposing that research through APIs. So again, thanks for coming on, and we look forward to having you as the audience come back in for our upcoming episodes of Let's Code. And by all means, please go check out the IBM API Hub.
Neil, thanks for having us.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.